Hey, welcome back, and thanks for joining me again on Rich Fisher is Painting Something, because I have to paint something. So we finished up the Raven. That was a fun painting to do, and we're moving into the month of November, right before the wonderful Christmas holidays, which we got a great Christmas painting coming up for you too. Not Christmas, just a nice winter scene. We'll do a nice winter scene. But on this episode, or this series, we are going to do just a still life. So what I did was I took this picture I took outside. This picture, I believe I took indoors, set up in my studio. And this picture of this right here was taken actually back in Michigan at one of the campgrounds we were staying at up in northern Michigan. Combining all those together on my computer and putting together a nice little composition. This looks fun to paint. And what I'm going to do this time, normally I'll practice painting the painting I'm going to do and then do it for the video to save, to make sure I don't make any mistakes. But hey, I'm going to just drag you along with me on this one and discovery and paint the whole thing as we go. So I'm just going to give a quick prep here. We're going to do the background. I was going to pre-paint one just for me, myself, and I, but I figured, you know what? Let's see the whole process here. So I'm going to use the reference photo, which I'll post, and then I am going to, now, I put a piece of board back here because every time I try and lean my palette a little bit and then put any weight on it, I end up pushing this thing in and my hand slips, blah, blah. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this image and I'm just going to quickly sketch in. And I will take my little T-square and I just want to make sure I got this relatively flat. And then I'm going to take, this is going to be just like above eye level. It's got a little bit of radius. And then this one actually comes off. That wide. I want the post to be about that wide. And I like how they cut these notches out to put these fence posts in. I think it looks cool. We'll follow that to kind of the detail. Excuse me. I'm going to start my little hay bale. So I can see a little bit of it. So it needs to be down here. And that gives a little bit of room for that. Back of the basket. An ellipse. Jerry was always pretty good about explaining how ellipses work. So then I've got a pumpkin, which I might move there. Let's see what that looks like. It needs to be a little bigger. It doesn't matter when you're doing a pumpkin now, it looks pumpkinish. And then we've got the little gourd pumpkin. Again, this is just a real super rough sketch. Got an apple sitting down here that I can see in the top of. I got a bell pepper sitting next to it. Actually, right next to it. Another, this comes down further. Pepper here. A piece of corn. Back in here, I got grapes. I got a red onion. Back there. And then we've got grapes all over the place. I like that. And this, you can actually see the bottom of that, okay? What else? I got another piece of corn sitting in here, which I'll bring up a little bit higher. And then grapes of wrath. Okay. Actually, this is going to be the last time I'm going to use this palette. So we're going to use this 2-inch hake brush. And this is a natural, I think it's goat hair. I'm going to use the black we used on painting the Raven. And I've already covered this old canvas once. But now I'm going to come back in here. I want this background to be super dark. So we will just make it super dark. You got to add moisture to this one to keep the brush working. If you get it too dry, the hairs will split apart. See how that's just nice and flat? It makes it much easier. Nice, and feather those edges out. We just want to get this kind of covered, and then we're going to come in and do something fun just to get the background set. I kind of like the placement, so I'll try not to mess that up too much. Water. Paint. And I've had this palette of paint now for at least 3 months. I just keep putting it in the fridge when I'm not actively painting every day. If you were painting every day, it would probably still get a little bit moldy. And just by putting it in the fridge, cool, that's good. A little bit more down here. This is where house painting comes in handy when you're trying to ambidextrously paint. Get this dark down here. There's going to be some active stuff down here in the bottom, so I'm not too concerned about that. But I think we've got good coverage now on the black. Now, a little bit of fun to kill some of the black. I'm going to take this black. I'm going to grab some of this Hooker's green. Whoops, I got some burnt umber. Not a big deal. Make this nice and soupy. Flatten my brush out and just start wiggling in some background distant color that should look like just some grass or something back there. Flatten my brush out. And kind of let that fade off into the distance. it's something you can just barely see, but it'll be effective later. Down here, might make this a little bit heavier handed with the green, just because you'll see what we're going to end up doing here. And trying to keep my hands clean, sometimes I can't. Wow, I did a good job of getting my hands. Hair. Come back. Now, see, it typically doesn't drive me too batty, but once in a while it does bug me if it's going to be somewhere where I've got activity to do later. Real light touch, just getting some of that green back there. A little heavier over here. What I want to do first before I get anything laid out, I've got my layout basically done, but I need to come back here in the background and just add a little bit more. Showed you, if you watched the video I did on how to set up your palette, I've got a clean palette, which is very unusual for me to have a clean palette, and I've got clean water, which is another very unusual thing for me to have done. So first thing I'm going to start off with here is my number, and I'm sure this is I think they call it a 1/2 inch or a number 6, not synthetic, Sable hair brush. I'm just going to come down here. I need to create some of that black I just threw away when I cleaned off my palette, but not a big deal. Get some blue, get some burnt umber. And this is very much on the brown side, so I need to add more blue. And we're going to add a touch of purple to that. And what I might do, instead of using that brush so much, is I might just grab my palette knife. I don't need a lot of black to begin with. I just need it to correspond with the background a little bit more. So let's just get that mixed up. And hey, I hope you guys are enjoying these as much as I'm enjoying doing them. Again, it not only keeps me out of trouble, but it's forcing me, because my goal is this year to do one painting every month and get it out and share it with as many people as I can. If I have 20 followers, great. If I've got 0, great. If I got 1 million, thank you. But I just love painting, and I love to share it. So I'm just going to keep doing this, and it forces me to come out and get out of my shell and do this. So what I'm going to do, I need to come in. I want a little bit more background, just faded background. So I'm going to grab some of that black I just made, take some Hooker's green, mixed with that black that's in my brush. And I've got, this is pretty soupy, and that's the way I want it. I don't want this to be real defined, but I've got a nice chiseled edge on the end of my brush. And I'm just going to come in here and see, okay, that's not going to be light enough. I'm going to clean the brush out. I'm going to grab a little bit more of the Hooker's green, nice and thin. With the black, it's a little bit greener now. See what that looks like. Perfect. So I'm just going to come back in here and scumble, fade it into black. Go different directions, and you'll barely be able to see this later on, but you might. So let's just go ahead and get those tossed in. Back to the watery green. See, it's already turning a little bit too black. I'm going to have to redo. Yeah. More green. See how thin acrylic can be at times. Looks great when it's wet. And I am just scumbling this green on. And for now, that's going to be about all we're going to do. Clean that brush out, put it to sleep right there. Next, I'm going to take, so this is one of the number 6 bristle brushes that I've got. That a typical bristle brush, well, this one's not quite, but see how it starts out is square, and this one is round. This would be considered a filbert brush, where this is a square. And this, my square brushes, and I utilize them for one thing, and then I end up having it scrubbed off, so I end up with a filbert brush, which works out great. So now, I got my vague reference drawing in here, so I'm going to come down here and grab some of this burnt sienna. Again, I want that thin. This is my drawing color. Just burnt sienna. I think that's about all we need here. I just get it nice and thin. And then I'm going to come back up here. And I'm going to come back to where my drawing was and just set myself some reminders for what I had drawn here. Painting any lips. That seems to be a tricky one. If you were to take and look at something round, and then if you were to take and flatten it and draw it from the side, you end up with an elliptical view. So it's just basically taking something and turning it into a two-dimensional object through a two-dimensional surface that you're working on. So this has got just almost dots hanging out there. My pumpkin, I'll bring it back behind this a little bit more than I'm showing here. And then it's got a flat top that kind of goes at an angle. And I think I'm going to make it a little bit bigger than it purports. Comes the little gourd that's right next to it, and it is touching it. So I need to get that kind of put into perspective. And again, all we're doing with this color is just indicating. So I know what I'm doing, where I'm going if I wipe out those lines. Get this drawn in. And this right here, I did make it just a little bit bigger so it kind of looks more like it's coming at you. It might make sense later. Maybe it won't. We'll see. And that's really the basics of it. I want to, and we've just got a little grape sitting out here, which is important. We'll get those put in. Grapes, grapes, grapes. Now I've got an apple. I like the way the apple's shaped up. Back here we've got a red onion. That's what we need the alizarin crimson for. My red pepper. I've got an apple sitting here. I've got a yellow pepper sitting here. I've got a piece of corn coming down here. I want that to be out here. And then it's got a flat top that kind of goes at an angle. And I think I'm going to make it a little bit bigger than it purports. So I know what I'm doing, where I'm going if I wipe out those lines. So I another piece of corn that sits up here. And honestly, that is about the extent of my drawing for this. And then the hay and everything else. So let that dry for a second, and I'm going to come back to this number 4 flat sable. I'm going to come in here to this pile of green. It's really wet. I think I'm going to add some vivid lime green to the soup. And this is going to make this substantially more bright back here. I want to get something in here before I lose it all. Flip up. Just flip your brush up. And we'll come in and put some individual grass strands up later. And that's a little more visible, and that's kind of all I was after. Didn't seem to get it off the first one. And just barely at that. Don't be afraid to add a little bit more. All right. I think I can live with that. Like so. Okay. All right. Come back to my number 6 bristle brush, which has been turned into a filbert. But for right now, let's just go ahead and block in a pumpkin. Come down to my cad orange, just to this pile of brown is fine. Grab a little bit of purple and a little bit of blue. You want to gray that, tone that down a lot. A touch of gesso. The gesso will make the opacity a little better, a lot better actually. So orange, purple, a touch of blue, a touch of gesso. Let's see how light this is, but I think it's honestly it'll be too bright yet. We need to get darker. So I'll just grab some of this black I made up earlier. That should be better, yeah. And this is going to look super ugly for a while, but okay. That's what makes it a painting. Notice I'm not trying to just blob this in and paint it pure, just orange right off the get-go. I'm actually trying to leave some character, so if I need it later, it's there. I will try and leave some dark areas for where the contour of the pumpkin skin about like so. Okay, that's the first color on that. We can technically do the little guy next to it. I'm just going to add a touch of yellow to that mix. Can you see how the tonal value of the gourd is just a little bit different? That'll work. And let's see. These are always fun. I enjoy painting these things. I like to paint stuff and things, and these would be, I would consider these to be things, just painting some things. Let's leave that for the minute. Anything else? And a little bit of this orange. Let me clean this out just a touch. We had a yellow pepper. I'm going to put a little bit more orange in that. Just a touch more. And maybe just a touch more of gesso. I'm going to take this yellow pepper. I know it's right here. And just look at the pepper and start to figure out how we're going to put this all together. It's the edge of the bucket, and that'll be super dark, but we're just going to get some color in there for now. Yellow pepper, gourd, first pumpkin. I do see a little, that's more on the green side of that. Okay. I'm going to clean that out. And now I'm going to take a look at the hay bale that's sitting back here. I'm going to come down to my burnt umber and this, just a touch of this black, and maybe a touch of purple. I can see where my drawing was. I'm just going to kind of get this scumbled in here. Put a little bit of gesso, maybe a touch of yellow, burnt umber, touch of yellow, purple. There we go. And just, again, scumble in this hay. And oof, this painting is looking ugly. But that's how you start out. And I notice we have some hay down here. We'll just kind of keep that going. All right. All right, now, I like that part. I'm going to take that yellowish color with the brown I just mixed up. I'm going to add in a little bit more yellow. A touch more of gesso. Touch more of purple. I don't even know what you would call this color, but it's a color I'm going to use. And I'm going to come in here to this bucket. There's not too much there. A little bit of a highlight. And the bucket doesn't have to be perfect. You kind of don't want it to be perfect anyway. I had to search everywhere to find a bucket. A wooden bucket. Come over here, and I'm just going to dash in a little bit of this color to the edge. I like this really nice bright edge of the hay. Some crisscross strokes where there's going to be hay. That's just kind of getting it underpainted. And it's fun coming in later and making what this mess looks like hay or whatever else. Get it in there. Maybe just a little bit more of that. A couple pieces of hay sticking out. All right. Clean my brush out. And all I'm trying to get done today is just like the first basic underpainting. So let's get to the back side of this. I'm going to come into my black. I'm going to take it over to a new pile here. I'm going to add blue to it, and I'm going to add some gesso. I just want a nice thin bluish black, gray, thin, thin, thin. So we know when you're looking at something in perspective, that's going to be kind of your flat line. Then you're going to have an angle up here. So you kind of want to start to taper that angle to start to meet your flat one. See how that works? And then this down here is going to be dark, but it's okay. We'll get it put in here. Nice. I like that. I love this old post here. I'm even going to put in this knot hole that's right about there. And we have some really cool background light. That's going to be good. Start following the wood grain. I'm kind of following the contours of the grain I see. And that looks cool. I like the way this comes down. Let's see if we can make this work. Yeah, and some of this is going to be covered with that vegetation down there, so not a big deal. But I like the start of that. My wood here, I like the splits in the wood. I'm going to just get that indicated. Touch more gesso, touch more blue with the black. Thin, thin, thin. That's how we start out. I like the split I see in the wood, which you can always add in later. Underpainting, underpainting, underpainting. All the work you got to go through just to get to the fun part of highlighting. But like I say, it's all about the time you spend behind the canvas in front of your painting. If you're anything like me, I need to do this. I like the knot hole. Tap up there. Okay. That part, great. Let's get, I've got the onion. I'm going to take a little bit of alizarin crimson into this pile of gray I've got. It's super wet, but I am just going to get some of this color in here so I know what I'm dealing with later. And that wasn't even enough. So I'll grab a touch of that black, make this just a little more vivid. There we go. Pulling away from the edges so I don't leave any hard lines. That'll be the onion. Actually, these are great for the grapes. Notice I'm not painting one individual grape. My grapes might change from that layout, but I do have these purple grapes over here. I'm going to grab a little bit of purple into the same pile. I'm going to add a touch of gesso just so I can see it. And I will, these I'll make a little more grapish because I need them to end off the painting. Grapish, is that even a word? I don't know. A little graper. I needed a little graper. There's blue on, there's so many colors in grapes, it's crazy. Okay, now it looks like we've got some of the vivid lime green grapes next to it. Come down here and grab my vivid lime green, put it in the same pile of purple I was using. Grab a little bit of gesso, lighten it up, make it thin-ish, and then I can indicate where these grapes there's some grapes. Great, by the way, skin color. Using your alizarin crimson, your vivid lime green combined, and we'll hopefully get into a class of doing a face. I'm going to come on the back side of this apple. Get some of that green laid in there. There's definitely some green here. Oh, wow, my brush is still dirty. Grab a little bit of cad red. Thin with a little bit of purple. And we'll kind of just tap in where this apple is going to live. Apple. I've got a very red pepper, so I'm gonna clean my brush out a little bit, grab more of the cad red, come over here to this purple black mixture of crap I've been working on. A touch more purple than that. There we go. This will be the underpainting for the pepper. This looks like it goes almost straight down, but I'll make a little bit of movement. That's got a really cool cast shadow. It goes just like that, but we'll deal with that later. Got to get the red under there. Okay, and then the very last thing we're going to do is, there's a couple of stalks of corn in here. Clean that off. Corn's on the cobs. We'll come back to this green mess I've got here. And again, this is just indicator. Actually, I got a green apple over here too, but I want this. There's a piece of corn right back here that comes through, sticks out over here a little bit. And then there's the corn back there, and then I've got an apple there. Grab a little bit of vivid lime green. And I know this is going to be super bright, so and we'll just kind of maybe make that apple up later. Get to this level. So get to this point, get your palette blackened up, get some real faint watered down green in the back. Your drawing's done. You've got everything's pretty much laid out, and even your base colors are started. There's something I'm going to fix right here is this. So I think that was a little bit of blue. And I ruined my color, so I'll come back here and grab some black. Touch of gesso. Restart that. But this, and I just want to get that. Okay, so that's where we're going to be. And that's the problem I've got sitting painting, but oh well. I might try and do a stand-up painting one of these days here. Okay, that's good. I love backlight, so we'll, yeah. Now I'm going to start putzing around. Okay, let's leave it right there, and we'll come back for part 2. Thanks for joining me. Stay tuned for part 2 of, what do we want to call this painting? November stuff and things. I don't know. Leave me comments. Please subscribe. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you enjoy.